The CEO of Xpeng just sent an email to all of his thousands of staff telling them that in 2025, further price wars would escalate. We're looking at the greatest price war battles in the history of the automotive industry. We have never, ever in human history seen it play out this way. We've never seen automakers willing to sell millions of cars at a loss in order to gain market share. And not bad cars, but actually cars that are improving every few months. This bloodbath, as Xpeng CEO referred to it, is only going to get deeper, more muddy, and more bloody in 2025. But all of this is primarily at the expense of Western automakers who are unquestionably losing this battle. More than 30,000 car dealerships in mainland China are facing a bleak year in 2025, with many turning from basically high profit generators into corporate failures in 2 years under a debilitating price war and an e-commerce onslaught. More than half of the entire industry's participants failed to achieve their sales targets for 2024, the China Automobile Dealers Association said in an end of December report. Most of them are suffering huge losses or struggling with capital. They cannot raise the funds they need. The discount war among Chinese manufacturers involving petrol-powered and electric cars resulted in US $24.3 billion of losses from January to December. In 2024, Chinese car dealerships lost more than $20 billion. There were several bankruptcies as well. Margins in the industry are incredibly low, but no one really seems to know the numbers. I mean, yeah, China is clearly taking over the global automotive industry, but it is at a price. It is costing them huge, huge sums of money. The Chinese government, of course, is stimulating the automotive industry in China, as does the American government in America and European governments in Europe. But that has cost hundreds of billions of dollars. More losses are coming. Here are the numbers behind what we're seeing here in China and what is projected to happen in 2025. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. If you want to support the channel by becoming a YouTube member, that would help me to continue creating more videos and try and get the word out there about what's really going on and how we can transform the global economy. You know, EVs are massively improving people's health qualities. Air quality improvements have been enormous in China in particular. I noticed that when I was there, been there a few times recently, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? The air quality here is significantly better than Melbourne, significantly better than Sydney. I feel like I'm not choking in fumes like I am in those cities. And we know that causes cancer, that causes all kinds of illnesses. So that's a big part of the reason the Chinese government have driven electrification. But the other reason is they know it's the future of the automotive industry. That said, there are losses and casualties that are occurring. I mean, massive ones. One Chinese car maker lost an average of $48,000 per car, NIO, in 2024. $48,000 per car. That is just crazy. Chinese e-firms are suffering huge, huge losses. I'm not going to get into those numbers, but let's have a look at the dealerships themselves. 4,000 dealerships were shut down. Of a total of 30,000 dealerships, 2,000 dealerships actually went bankrupt the year before. So the number of dealerships going bankrupt doubled in 2024 versus 2023. Remember, this is not a shrinking market. The car market in China actually increased by 5% in 2024. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are telling you stuff about the Chinese car market, saying it's in recession, it's in dire straits. I don't really care about that stuff. What I care about is the facts. The facts are that actually 5% more cars were sold in 2024 than 2023 for around 30 million sales. And that means that about 37% of all cars sold worldwide last year were sold in China. So it's not like this is some, zero-sum game that's getting worse. It's getting worse for legacy automakers. So you would think that it wouldn't be so cutthroat. But because of these price wars, which is what Chinese firms do, where basically they eliminate all the small players and just the big ones are left standing in most industries, like solar, for example. Because of this, margins have been pushed so hard. Profit margins in China's automotive industry were squeezed even further in 2024 as cutthroat competition continued to claim weaker electric vehicle manufacturers. Industry-wide margins for car manufacturers in the world's largest market averaged 4.4% in the January through November period. Data released December 27 by China's Passenger Car Association shows they averaged 5% in 2023. The year before that, it was 7%. The year before that, it was over 10%. As you can see, legacy automakers who used to make billions, General Motors in particular, Volkswagen in particular, more than 50% of their profit used to come from China. That's finished. That is over now. They're barely making any profit. I mean, General Motors obviously made a huge loss. For 3 successive quarters, they lost hundreds of millions in China. They just wrote down their business to the tune of $6 billion as well in China. Massive losses are being incurred by legacy auto, but they're not the only ones. Now, these profits, low profits, are being seen across the industry, but they're also affecting suppliers. Average profit margins of 6.1% of downstream industrial enterprises showed that profit margins across all of China have been squeezed. The automotive industry needs to effectively reduce costs and increase efficiency and increase the level of cost control, said Kui Dongshu, the industry trade group's Secretary General. So what are automakers doing? Well, they're doing a few things. They're trying to make cars much, much faster. They're using giant gigapresses that are even bigger than Tesla's gigapresses. They're using every technique they can think of, robotics, to improve efficiency, to make products at a lower price. For at least the last 2 years, China's car market, and particularly its EV sector, has been characterized by intense rivalries that have spawned price cuts and deep discounting in an attempt to lure buyers. And also, not just that, I mean, BYD's CEO said he intends to rid China of legacy automakers, and good on him. Why not? As BYD company has consolidated its grip, smaller players have gone out of business. GU, backed by Beidou Inc. and Geely Automobile Holdings and Human Horizons Group Inc., known as Hi-Fi, were among this year's casualties. So was Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi left China for good. Total industry revenue in the first 11 months of the year rose only 3% to $1.3 trillion, while costs climbed by 4% to 8.3 trillion yen, or approximately $1 trillion. Profits slipped to 413.2 billion yen, a year-on-year decrease of 7.3%. In the month of November, profits fell 35%, and the margin of the automotive industry was even lower at 3.3%. So by the end of the year, industry margins are meant to be healthy. They're meant to be good for October, November, December, which are the key 3 months of the year for the Chinese car market when sales rocket up, but they went even lower. Margins were at an all-time record low. So we've got companies, new companies coming into the market. We've got Xiaomi. We've got these new brands that you guys probably haven't really heard of that much. So I haven't talked about them that much. But new brands have entered the market in China, and they are putting the squeeze on. NIO, a Chinese electric car company that competes with Tesla, employs 11,000 people in research and development alone, but sells only 8,000 cars per month. Well, used to anyway. It's selling more than that now. It's up to about 30,000 by the end of the year. But on average, it was only selling around 15,000 cars per month, and it's making huge losses as a result. NIO lost US $835 million from April through June, just in that 3-month period, or US $35,000 for every single car it sold. But NIO and other companies in China's sprawling electric car sector have formidable government backing that allows them to withstand such losses and keep growing. When NIO nearly ran out of cash in 2020, a local government immediately injected US $1 billion for a 24% stake, and a state-controlled bank led a group of other leaders to pump in another US $1.6 billion. Over the last 6 years, the Chinese government appears to have invested more than $240 billion into their electric automotive industry. The push eventually created a market for 13.1 million vehicles that accounted for 60% of EV ownership globally. Beijing also pushed for global sales of Chinese-made EVs. That effort hasn't really worked in the United States, as Washington has pretty much blocked Chinese electric cars. But it's certainly worked really well outside of China. China is now the largest exporter of cars in the world. It used to be in 5th place only a few years ago. The South China Morning Post reported only yesterday that A bleak 2025 awaits China's 30,000 car dealers as price war piles on US $24 billion in losses. Now, despite a 4.7% increase, I should say, in nationwide car sales, 4,000 dealerships closed due to financial squeeze. That number is set to skyrocket in 2025. And the key reason is this. Legacy automakers are making huge losses as their sales collapse. Their sales are shrinking. And what that means is that every car is becoming much more expensive to produce. Legacy automakers' factories are running at about 50% capacity. When you run at half the efficiency you should be running at, each car is much more expensive to manufacture. And the difficult part here is that Chinese EV manufacturers, new Chinese car manufacturers, are using new techniques to build cars much faster. For example, XPeng can make the Mona M03, which costs $16,000 and is a direct rival to the Tesla Model 3. They make that and sell that for $16,000, right? That's a fully electric car. The Volkswagen Group cannot do that. General Motors cannot do that. Nissan sure as hell cannot do that. None of those car companies can do that. They can't compete with that. The Mona M03s, one comes off the production line every 62 seconds. The same thing for the Xiaomi SU7. One of those comes off the production line every 58 seconds. And what these car companies have done is they've basically copied Tesla's gigacasting strategy and other refining techniques to be able to produce cars at double or triple the speed of legacy automakers. So of those 4,000 dealerships that went bankrupt, you can obviously fairly safely predict that a very, very high percentage of those was selling cars made by Japanese, German, and American car companies, or at least joint owned with Chinese car companies. Over the next 12 months, the dealerships that will go bankrupt are the ones selling the products that are more expensive and inferior to other dealerships. And obviously, those are internal combustion cars, non-hybridized cars that are not even plug-in hybrids. Who makes those vehicles? Who are the predominant car companies making those older vehicles? The Nissan Sylphies, the Volkswagen Levitas. Who are making those? They're still selling in the millions, but those sales are falling like a rock. So while the US media is crowing on about Chinese car dealerships going bankrupt, and they are in the thousands, who owns those dealerships? It's legacy Western automakers primarily that are being hurt here. Now, Chinese automakers obviously are most of them are making a loss, but their sales are growing at the expense of the West. So although this story may be framed to appear as though it's doom and gloom for China, the truth is China is taking back its own auto industry from the Western players. Really, even though it's obviously sustaining enormous losses in the process, it's doing two things. It's not only taking back its own automotive industry, it's taking over the global automotive industry. In 2024, nearly 80% of all electric cars made worldwide were made in China. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Does this resonate with your experience? Let me know what you think.